We hear so much about places like Kashmir, but it's often just headlines, right? Politics, big strategies.
Right, you miss the ground level stuff, the
Yeah.
human stories, the day-to-day realities.
Exactly. And that's what we're getting into today. We're doing a deep dive into the experiences of an Indian Army officer. He's called Sir in the source material we looked at.
Yeah, it's from a YouTube transcript, Real Talk Clips. He served in the Rashtriya Rifles in Kashmir back in the early 2000s.
And he talks about specific missions. So our goal here is to kind of unpack that, get that ground level view of counterinsurgency.
Beyond the news reports, understand the tactics, sure, but also the human side, how things like empathy and sometimes really unconventional thinking actually worked.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. He arrives June 2001 with the 36RR. That's part of the Garhwal Rifles.
That's right. He mentions them being, a top counterinsurgency unit, and his initial approach, it was interesting.
How so? What did he focus on straight away?
Well, his whole philosophy was built around winning hearts and minds. He really believed that was the only way for, long-term peace.
Not just in Kashmir, but he drew parallels elsewhere.
Yeah, he mentioned Palestine, Gaza, Punjab, saying this approach is crucial in these long, drawn-out conflicts. It wasn't just talk for him.
So what did that look like, practically speaking?
He made a real effort to connect, meeting local school teachers, kids, organizing programs, things like that.
And I read something about tea for elders.
Yes, that really stood out. He specifically told his soldiers, if you see an elderly person, doesn't matter their religion, offer them tea. Show respect.
That's quite something. A small gesture, but potentially powerful.
It seems it was. The idea was to build trust, to show they weren't just an occupying force. Locals started seeing him as someone with compassion, was the word used.
And did this actually, pay off in terms of the mission?
It seems it directly led to getting intelligence. There was this one Kashmiri individual.
Ah, yes, the one he says deserves India's highest award.
That's the one. It highlights that complex idea he mentioned, how someone could be both a rahbar, a guide, and a killer. This person apparently started trusting the officer.
And provided intel. What kind?
Crucial information. About 4 Pakistani militants from Lashkar-e-Taiba, or Leti, they'd crossed the Pir Panjal range.
Okay, Leti. We should probably stress who they were. The officer describes them differently.
Definitely. He makes it clear they were ISI trained, that's the Pakistani intelligence agency, and had, better gear, better weapons, maybe more motivated than some local groups.
So a serious threat, not just run-of-the-mill.
Absolutely not. The intelligence said they were in a remote village, planning to stay overnight in one particular house.
So standard procedure would be cordon and search. A big operation.
That would be typical, yeah. But the officer decided against it. He thought it was too risky.
Risky how? Because of the militants' training.
Partly, but mainly the terrain. Very difficult, mountainous. He figured a big, noisy operation would just give them too much warning and they'd melt away into the hills. Escape was likely.
Okay, so if not the standard approach, then what?
Something unconventional, a very small team, just 7 or 8 guys, really fit soldiers.
7 or 8, that's tiny.
It is. The plan was for this small team to approach the village from the rear, the difficult side that wasn't usually patrolled.
At night.
At night. No lights, no GPS back then, remember, just map reading and experience. The goal was to get onto the high ground overlooking the village by first light.
Wow, that sounds incredibly tough. High risk for that small team too, surely. Ambush, getting lost.
Huge risks, but he calculated it was a better bet than letting trained Leti guys escape. Stealth and surprise were the aim, taking the dominant ground.
Okay, so this small team makes this difficult night trek. They get to the high ground at dawn. Then what?
Then they waited. The plan involved the main force arriving later, maybe 9 or 10 a.m.
So the main force provides the push.
Exactly. They'd come into the village acting like it was just a routine search. Nothing too alarming initially.
The idea being the militants would hear them, feel pressured, and move.
Uphill, away from the village, towards the high ground where the small team was waiting.
And did it work like that?
Apparently, yes. Just as predicted. The militants started moving up the slope.
Tense moments for the guys watching, I bet.
Must have been. They spotted them through binoculars, 4 or 5 figures in farans, those traditional Kashmiri cloaks.
Or they couldn't just open fire, right? Risk of civilians.
Absolutely not. He stressed that. Priority 1, no civilian casualties. They had to be sure.
So how do they confirm? It's early morning, people in cloaks. Could be anyone.
The confirmation came from observation. There was no livestock up there that early. Villagers wouldn't be grazing animals at that hour on that part of the mountain. That detail, plus the direction they came from, it clicked.
Okay, so they're reasonably sure what happened then.
They had their weapons positioned. An LMG, AK-47s. It seems the militants might have sensed something was wrong, maybe saw a glint or felt watched, because they suddenly started trying to move back downhill, quickly.
And that's when the shooting started.
Yes. The team opened fire from the high ground as the militants retreated.
Must have been chaotic. You mentioned communication issues, too.
Yeah, trying to tell the main force arriving below exactly where the contact was happening was hard. Rugged terrain, lots of folds, gullies, streams. Just saying by the stream wasn't enough.
Technology wasn't what it is now either.
Exactly. No fancy GPS locators. He did get on the radio to his CO, Brigadier Raizada, just brief updates, contact established, that sort of thing.
And the firefight itself.
It became quite scattered. The militants broke up, his own guys were maneuvering. He mentioned regrouping with his radio op and another soldier named Gabbar Singh at one point. It went on for a while.
What was the final result?
4 militants down, including, significantly, an Leti battalion commander.
A big catch.
Huge. And the gear they recovered confirmed the initial intel. A Sony World receiver radio, high-tech Japanese walkie-talkies, stuff beyond standard militant issue. Plus, weapons, ammo.
And crucially, his team.
0 casualties on the army side, which is quite amazing, really.
Did the militants fight back? Were they armed effectively?
Oh, yes, absolutely. He confirms they returned fire. They were definitely armed and engaged.
And his theory about why they went high. Just to rest.
Yeah, the assumption was they wanted to get away from the village itself. Maybe they felt the villagers weren't too happy about them being there, felt safer up high. It shows understanding the local pulse, you know.
It really does. Now,
Yeah.
he shifts gears a bit after recounting this to something, well, unexpected, this idea of the romantic soldier.
Yeah, it's a fascinating tangent, isn't it? He basically suggests that soldiers, and he includes militants in this, often have this romantic streak.
Romantic in what sense? Amidst all that violence?
Yeah. His logic is that most people involved in these things are young, and youth is often a time for, well, romance, poetry, music. He thinks it's almost a necessary balance.
A balance to the harshness,
Yeah.
the isolation, the danger.
Exactly, a way to cope, perhaps. He even mentions his own background, like poetry, acting, writing in school. He stresses how important reading is for a leader, too.
And how did he see this playing out on the ground in Kashmir?
Through things they found during searches, diaries specifically.
Diaries, what kind?
2 types, he said. There were the operational ones, code words, money details, plans, but then there were personal diaries.
Filled with what?
Sher Shayari, Urdu poetry. He said some of it was really beautiful, sometimes by famous poets.
Wow. Poetry in a militant's diary.
Yeah. And letters, too. Personal letters, maybe little things like handkerchiefs, suggesting relationships, emotional connections.
So it humanized them for him, in a way.
Yeah, I think so. He explicitly says something like, he is also a soldier, but fighting for a wrong cause. It adds that layer of complexity. These weren't just faceless enemies, they were young men, often with feelings, fears, and, well, romantic notions.
That's a really profound observation. And it ties into another operation he described, doesn't it? Near Kukernag.
It does, yes. This second story also started with intelligence from, as he calls them, friends, local sources.
And this intel was quite specific about romance.
Very specific. It was about a militant commander who had a mebuba, a beloved in a certain house, and the key detail was he'd visit her alone.
Because romance is usually private.
That was the logic. He also mused that sometimes young women might see militants with guns as, I don't know, heroes or figures of power compared to the regular soldiers they saw every day. A dangerous kind of attraction, maybe.
And this led to another small team operation. He seemed to favor those.
He really developed an expertise there, he felt. Just 3 or 4 soldiers. He saw it as very effective for that environment. Less detection, more agility.
So what was the plan for this Kukernag operation?
Again, a small team, maybe 4 or 5 this time. Infiltrate at night, around 2:03 a.m., get into position near the house.
Why that specific timing?
Crucially, before the morning is on, the call to prayer, which was around 4:15 a.m., they wanted to be set before dogs started barking or people started stirring in the cold. Maximum stealth.
And again, the trek must have been challenging.
Oh, yeah. 15-20 kilometers, hilly terrain, 3-4 hours walking, no GPS, no radios during the approach. Just skill and endurance.
And once they were in position?
A long, long wait. From those early hours, right through the entire day until sunset. just watching.
Watching what?
The life of the village, the school bus coming and going, people heading to work, women washing clothes, farmers coming back in the evening. They had to blend in, stay hidden, observe. Incredible patience required.
Must have been nerve-wracking.
Ah.
And potentially fruitless, right? He might not even show up.
Exactly. He said he was actually thinking about packing it in for the day. It was getting late. And then 2 AK-47 shots.
From where? His team.
No, somewhere nearby.
Yeah.
And he describes it as the sweetest sound he could hear at that moment.
Sweetest sound. Gunshots.
Because it meant contact. It meant the waiting hadn't been for nothing. Something was happening.
So what had happened? Who fired?
It turned out one of his soldiers, a guy named Dinesh, had spotted the target. The militant commander was leaving the house.
Ah, so Dinesh acted independently?
Yes, and this is key to the officer's philosophy. He trained his soldiers to think for themselves, to act decisively if they had positive ID, always remembering the rule about civilian safety.
So Dinesh saw him, identified him, and then?
Dinesh started tailing him. Closed the gap 50 yards, then about 30 yards.
Did the militant know?
Maybe he suspected something. He apparently glanced back near a drain where some women were washing utensils.
And Dinesh took the shot then?
Right then. Clear target, positive ID, 1 shot. Then 2 more quickly at close range.
Result?
1 down, as the officer reported back to his COO. The radio exchange was simple. Dilawar, 1 down. And the reply, Mubarak ho, congratulations.
Another successful operation for the small team.
Yes, and again, reinforcing the earlier theme.
The romantic connection.
Exactly. When they checked the body, they found love letters. And Rumel's handkerchiefs with little love signs, poetry. Same pattern.
It's quite a consistent observation he makes. This brings us back to his point about training, doesn't it? Independent thinking.
Absolutely. The Kukernag incident was a prime example. Dinesh didn't wait for orders once he had the ID and the clear shot. He acted based on his training and the situation.
And the officer emphasizes these weren't technically special forces.
No, just regular infantry soldiers from 36RR, but trained to a very high level of autonomy and skill within a small core group. Maybe 10 or 12 guys he focused on.
He really trusted them.
Immense trust. He even mentioned maybe connecting us with some of them someday, so you could hear their side of the story too. The idea was plan meticulously, but empower the soldier on the ground.
So, wrapping this deep dive up, what are the big takeaways? We've seen the hearts and minds strategy.
Yeah, the importance of that human connection. Then there's the clever use of intelligence, often from those local connections.
And the willingness to use unconventional tactics. Small teams, surprise, difficult approaches.
Right. And running through it all is that human dimension, the romantic soldier idea, finding poetry, letters. It complicates the picture, doesn't it?
It really does. And finally, that emphasis on training soldiers to think, to be trusted, to act independently.
It paints a picture of counterinsurgency that's, well, far more nuanced than just battles and statistics. It's about psychology, local knowledge, individual initiative, and understanding the people involved on all sides.
Makes you think, doesn't it? How much do those individual stories, those personal motivations, the poetry, the love letters, the reasons someone provides intel, how much does all that actually shape the bigger conflict?
That's the provocative thought, I suppose. If you understand those nuances, can you find maybe more effective, perhaps even more humane ways to deal with these incredibly difficult situations? It's certainly something to mull over.